So anyway, the topic is the Bible evil or immoral? I invited a few people to come on Twitter. I put the link out there. And I also just put the link on to join in the back chat. So anyway, here we go. I think one of the people I invited on from X or Twitter is here. Brother Maverick. I'm going to bring you up. 1 second here.
Brother, hey, what's Maverick, up, man?
Hear me?
How you doing? Hey, thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate you.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay, cool. So anyway, yeah, I invited you on. You commented on my post, or you made a quote tweet out of it.
Yeah.
On Twitter. So, is the Bible evil or immoral?
No. I commented directly on your comments about misrepresenting Jesus, stating that women had to marry their. Well, I'm not gonna say. I don't want you getting demonetized or restricted. That women had to marry the people who would assault them. I'm pretty sure everyone in your audience knows what I mean by the word assault. Pretty sure you know what I mean by the word assault when we're talking about Deuteronomy. So that's what you asked me to come up and talk about it. So that's what I'm here for.
Okay, so we're referring to, let's just make sure we're talking about the same passage in Deuteronomy 22, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me just pull it up and put it on the screen for people because not everybody knows the passage.
Agreed.
Deuteronomy 22. Okay. Here we go. Let me just share my screen. All right. So the passage that I'm talking about is 28. If a man happens to meet a virgin who is not pledged to be married and rapes her and they are discovered, he shall pay her father 50 shekels of silver. He must marry the young woman for he has violated her. He can never divorce her as long as he lives. This is the passage, right?
Yeah. So if you are on what are you on the NIV? What are you
on? Yeah, this is Bible Hub NIV.
Okay. Can you go to the NKJV, please?
Let's see. It is. Yep.
Now, can you read the same verse?
Yep. If a man finds a young woman who is a virgin and who is not betrothed, and he seizes her and lies with her, and they are found out, then the man who lay with her shall give to the young woman's father 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife because he has humbled her. He has not. He shall not be permitted to divorce her all his days.
Correct. Now, can you please read verse 25?
Okay, but if in the same translation, right?
Yeah, same translation is fine. NIV, I don't read the NIV. The NIV is a horribly bad translation, which is why I encourage people not to read it. That's obviously another discussion. But yeah, that's why I don't read it, and I encourage other Christians not to read it. Can you read verse 25, please?
But if a man finds a betrothed young woman in the countryside and the man forces her and lies with her, then only the man who lay with her shall die. That's it, or continue?
Right. So you read 25 and you read 28. Now, if we look at the actual Hebrew lexicons, right, 28 is not actually talking about someone who is assaulted by a man. 28 is talking about a man who, which was illegal at the time, seduces a young woman who is not betrothed. And if he decides that he wants to go ahead and sleep with her and they are caught, then now he owes the father of that girl money. That has nothing to do with a violent assault. So now, because you decided that you wanted to sleep with this girl out of wedlock and you got caught, now not only do you owe her dad money, but you are going to now marry her because that was the right thing to do. If we look at verse 25 and we look at verse 28 and you look at things like I use the Brown Driver Briggs Hebrew lexicon. The words in both of those verses are not even the same. In 25, the word is chazak, which is meaning to overpower, which is how you know you're talking about a violent assault. The word in verse 28 is tafas, which does not have the same connotation. Does that make sense?
It still has a violent context. It's about seizing and laying hold of someone.
It could, yes, but in this context, this is not about violence.
But what's your evidence for that?
Well, when you look at people like Daniel L. Block and you actually look at his work on it and the contextual wording used in verse 28, you do understand that if this was the same connotation, then the same punishment would be implemented upon the man. Because look at what does verse 26 say?
Verse 26?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it says, "But you shall do nothing to the young woman.
Mm-hmm.
There is in the young woman no sin deserving of death. For just as when a man rises against his neighbor and kills him, even so is this matter."
Correct.
Is that more?
So if this was the same connotation, why would the punishment for the man be different? You literally have 4 verses here, right? You got 25 and 26, you have 27 and 28 and 29, right? So don't you find it strange that the man was accused of supposedly assaulting this woman and has to be put to death, but then you think you're talking about the same thing and he has to marry her? That's absolutely that doesn't follow.
No, because it's not talking about the same thing. What else is different about the two contexts?
I don't know. You tell me.
Well, I'm asking you.
I explained to you. I explained to you what the difference is because you're a smart guy. You know for a fact that if verse 28 meant the same violent assault as verse 25, the law would not suddenly downgrade the punishment from death.
But it's not talking about the same thing.
I'm sorry?
It's not talking about the same thing.
Right. So your insinuation was in your ex post that Jesus makes women marry the man who assaulted them. I'm making it clear here that these 2 verses, the one that you're insinuating, is not a woman marrying her assaulter. This is the man being forced to marry the girl that he slept with when he had no business doing so.
Okay, good. So let's just clear something up first. Do you believe that this is revelation from God?
Of course.
And do you believe that Jesus is God?
Yes.
So you believe that Jesus, or the Son, the second person of the Trinity, took part in revealing this text?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good. So when I say Jesus, that's what I'm referring to. Just
I know, yeah, no, I'm in agreement with you, Jake. I have no problem with that. It's just like when Muslims call my show and they ask, or they try to make the same kind of wordplay and say, "Well, do you believe Jesus was involved in Numbers 31?" Yes, absolutely. You can't believe that Jesus is the son of the Godhead and then try to obfuscate that when punishments and judgments are handed out. I have no problem with that. Right.
Okay, good. So now you said verses in 25 and 26 are going together, and then you have 28 and 29,
which is why you have a different punishment. Correct.
Okay. What else is different that you have failed to mention between the two contexts?
Nothing that I'm aware of. Say it if you want to say it.
I just want to know if you know, because you said I'm a smart guy. I don't really know much about you. So I think if you're pretty smart, then you should be able to tell me what the difference is.
So you're saying 25 and 26, but if a man finds a young woman in the countryside and forces her and lies with her, only the man who lay with her shall be unalive. But you shall do nothing to the young woman. There is in the young woman no sin deserving of death. So making it clear that the person who's assaulted, it has done nothing wrong, right? For just as when a man rises against his neighbor and unalives him, even so is this matter. For he found her in the countryside, and the betrothed young woman cried out, but there was no one to save her. Now this goes into the next one, which your ex post was about. If a man finds a young woman who is a virgin, who is not betrothed, and seizes her and lies with her, and they are found out, then the man who lay with her shall give to the young woman's father 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife, because he has humbled her. He shall not be permitted to divorce her all his days. And then 30 says, a man shall not take his father's wife nor uncover the which is unrelated. So the difference that I illustrated to you was that if we look at the actual Hebrew and the words, first of all, you'd have to ask yourself, if this is the same offense, why are 2 different words being utilized? Why is chazak being used in verse 25 and then tafas being used in verse 28? Why is the punishment different? If the punishment is different and it's the same crime, would that stand to reason? Would that follow to you?
But it's not the same crime. But I'm asking you because I asked you now 2 or 3 times. Are you unable to give the other relevant difference between the two contexts?
No, I listen. You asked me, and I read it out loud. If there's a difference in your mind that you want to,
it's not in my mind. It's very clear in the text.
Then go ahead and name it. Then go ahead and name it. Go ahead. Okay, and I'll address it. No.
But if a man finds a betrothed young woman, that's what 25 says. 28 says, if a man finds a woman who is a virgin who is not betrothed.
Okay, so what? So again, how does that follow that this is the same crime?
No, that shows that they're not the same crime, dude.
So what does betrothed mean? What does betrothed mean?
Seriously, you don't know what betrothed means?
No, I'm asking you. I know what it means. Betrothed means that she is set up to be married, right? This is a betrothed young woman in the countryside, and the man forces her and lies with her. Okay, again,
but is that a difference in the two contexts? One is betrothed and one is not. Why'd you fail to mention that?
Because it's inconsequential to the punishment. You stated.
No, it is. That's why there is a difference.
No, brother. Because here's the thing: your post stated that Jesus made women marry the man who RIP or RAP or assaulted them, right? So
yes, according to verse 28, yes,
according to verse 28, correct. But you are reading the NIV, and now we're seeing that the actual translations, the proper translations, do not utilize that language. And when you look at the original Hebrew, which you have failed to address many times, it's not even the same.
I haven't even attempted to address it because I'm showing you that you are so illiterate you can't even read a text properly. You didn't even recognize the difference between 25
I recognize that 25. I recognize that 25.
You never mentioned one is betrothed and one is not. Why'd you fail to mention?
Because we're talking about the crime of whether the female was being
I asked about
assaulted
the
or not.
context.
Can I finish? Yeah. Can I finish?
They're not the same crime.
Can I finish my sentence?
One is betrothed and one is not.
No, they're not the same crime because the word utilized in Hebrew isn't even the same word. If it was the same crime, it would have said chazak in 25 and 28. You are trying to do the typical. You are trying to do. Okay, brother.
There are multiple words that can be used to convey the same meaning.
So show me how it makes it different whether or not the woman is betrothed or not. Go ahead, because you're trying to illustrate that point.
Let's do this, brother Maverick. Can you show me a single early Christian source that translates and understands this passage in the same way that you do?
An early Christian source that understands. I told you that I go to the Brown Driver Briggs Hebrew lexicon.
Dude, that's 21st century.
Okay, I'm going to the lexicon to look at what the actual words are.
I'm asking you, are there any authoritative Christian interpreters of this passage that actually understand the text in the way that you just said?
Okay, so the problem is you're acting like this interpretation was invented in the 21st century. That's what you're saying?
I'm saying it's not a pre-modern interpretation. It's a modern interpretation. It doesn't exist in the pre-modern period. Prove me wrong.
So if you look at the Septuagint, the Greek translation, and I know what you're doing because you don't want to address what the actual words are. Okay,
I do. So, I just told you, dude. Do you not understand that you can have multiple words that are different words that can have the same meaning or imply the same context?
So do you want me to talk, or do you just want to talk over me?
I want you to answer my question. You're not answering.
So I've answered the question because
you're not. A pre-modern source? Is there a pre-modern source? I'm talking about interpreters of the Christian Bible that interpret this passage in the same way that you do.
I don't need to go to a pre-modern source.
I'm asking do they exist?
Again, I'm not even going to bother to give it to you because you're ignoring the most important part of the two verses. You lied on X and you stated that Jesus makes a woman marry her rapist.
And that's exactly what's happening in verse 28.
That's exactly what's not happening because you yourself don't want to talk about the fact that tafas and chazak are not the same word. So explain to everybody.
I already responded to that, brother Maverick. Are you not listening? I already responded to that.
No, it's not about not listening. It's about the fact that you haven't addressed it.
I did.
You're running away from
I said,
okay,
let
so
me try it one more time.
Why is it two verses apart? Why is it two verses apart? Why is it two verses apart and utilizing different words then?
Because it doesn't have to use the same word to say the same thing. just as you just said. Dude,
Wait a second.
Simple, slow, or all the above?
No, brother.
Honestly.
No, I'm not the one who got my ass whooped by GodLogic in a debate. That's you. So
okay, you want to talk about that? You want to talk about that?
No. We're gonna stay right here because you already.
You don't want to talk about that.
You suffered enough humiliation.
You don't want to talk about that, dude.
Your explanation is your explanation is you ain't getting jizya from me, brother. You ain't getting jizya from me. Not even over my dead body will you get jizya from me.
Definitely, bro.
Yeah,
I love to collect jizya. I collected a whole bunch of it in the church. Now listen, dude, this is my stream. This is my stream. I asked you a direct question. I asked you a direct question.
And I asked you a direct question, and I answered your question.
If you're gonna do this clapping stuff, you're just gonna get removed, bro. I don't have time.
That's fine. Then remove me. I knew that's what was gonna come anyway. That's why Logic and me were laughing in the text, knowing it was gonna happen eventually. Because
you're a clown. You're a clown.
The only clown is you, brother.
Your argument is so low tier, Jake. Why are they not the same word? If they're not the same word, and they both can't mean rape. Hey, dummy! Earlier, when you said sexual assault,
hey, stupid!
When you said sexual assault, hey, when you said sexual assault, did that mean?
Why is the punishment different, Jake? Why is the punishment different, Jake?
The punishment is different, dumbass. The punishment is different is because one is betrothed and one isn't, which you failed to actually recognize. Thank you, dummy. Look at this guy. What an idiot. What an absolute fool. So I asked him 3 times, maybe 4 or 5 times, what is the difference between verses 25 and 26? Now, this guy is coming to educate me. He's coming to educate me on what these passages mean, and he can't tell me one of the fundamental differences between verses 25 and 26 and verses 28 and 29. The fundamental difference is, but if a man finds a betrothed young woman in the countryside, one is a case of betrothed, raping a betrothed woman, and the other one is a case where the woman is not betrothed and she's raped. Okay? Now, the reason why I asked him to provide me a single example of a pre-modern source that translates and understands the passage in the way that Mr. Brother Maverick is doing is because he can't. Why can't he show me a single early church father, early church historian, or early church exegete of the Bible, or even early Jewish sources who understand the passage in the same way that he is? He's saying that verses 28 and 29 are about a consensual affair. 25 and 26 are about rape. 28 and 29 are consensual sex. They're not about rape. But what this dumbass doesn't understand is that no, the difference is not about consent or one being raped versus not being raped and not consenting. It's about one being betrothed and one not being betrothed. And how do we know this? Let me actually break it down to you. I didn't think this guy was so low tier that he can't even properly read a text, that he didn't even know the difference between one was betrothed and one was not. You go to Exodus chapter 20. One second. I'm just pulling it up here. Okay. Sorry, Exodus chapter 22. And he's crying about the NIV, but it's not the NIV. I can only the NIV. I can show you like 10 different English translations that use the word rape, okay? And it's being translated as rape because it has that context or meaning behind it. Now, if you go to Exodus 22, okay? Now, look, let me show this dumbass and bury his argument that this is about consent. Exodus chapter 22, verse 16. If a man seduces a virgin, notice the wording difference, seduces a virgin who is not pledged to be married. So what? This is the same example. If according to Mr. Brother Maverick, he's so low IQ, he doesn't understand this. If Deuteronomy 22 verses 28 and 29 are about consensual sex with someone who is not betrothed to be married, and that's the punishment. Why is the punishment and the explanation different here when that's exactly what Exodus 22 is about? Then that would mean you have a contradiction in the Bible. Exodus 22:16 says, if a man seduces a virgin who is not pledged to be married and sleeps with her, this is the exact example he's claiming about Deuteronomy 22. He must pay the bride price, and she shall be his wife. Notice the difference? He has to pay the bride price, and she becomes his wife. If her father absolutely refuses to give her to him, he must pay the bride price for virgins. Notice the difference? Do you notice the difference? So Exodus 22:16 and 17 is actually about the man and the woman who have consensual sex, where the man seduces her, not rapes her. He seduces her. They have consensual sex, and she's not betrothed. She's not betrothed to another man. So if that's exactly the same thing as Deuteronomy 22, then why do they say different things about what the judgment or penalty is? In this Exodus 22, it says he must pay the bride price and she shall be his wife, but it gives an option for the father, right? Instead of paying the price directly to the father, and the father doesn't have a choice in rejecting in the 50 shekels with Deuteronomy 22, this says he must pay the bride price and she shall be his wife, but it's conditional or contingent upon if her father absolutely refuses to give her to him. So in the case of Exodus 22, the father can refuse, but in Deuteronomy 22, the father cannot refuse. There's no option about him refusing. And even if, in this case, even if the father refuses to give his daughter to him, then the man still must pay. Then the man still must pay the bride price for virgins. So this is the example of consensual sex with someone who is not betrothed. And notice the judgment is different. In this case, the father has the option to refuse the marriage. In Deuteronomy 22, he doesn't. And also, even if he does refuse, the man still must pay the bride price for virgins, for having sex with the girl. Deuteronomy 22 doesn't say that. So here's a Christian dilemma for you now. If Deuteronomy 22 verses 28 and 29 are about consensual sex and the punishment or judgment for that, for consensual sex with a woman who's not betrothed, and Exodus 22 is the same example, then you have a contradiction. Why does one give the option for the father to refuse and the other doesn't? And in one, he must pay the bride price for virgins even if he doesn't marry her. And that's not what Deuteronomy 22 says. So you either have if they mean the same thing and are referring to the same event and same crime, then it would be the same law, but they're not. So then if you want to say that they are, you have a contradiction between Exodus 22 and Deuteronomy 22. On the other hand, if you want to be smart and recognize, no, Exodus 22, 16 to 17 is the case that Brother Maverick said, and therefore that means that Deuteronomy 22, 28 to 29 is not referring to consensual sex, it's referring to rape. And he can't actually give me a pre-modern source from an early church father or writer that interprets the passage in the way that he does. Okay,